After 3 days of cooking, my 16-year-old daughter was set to host a birthday. Then my dad texted, "Not coming, going out, adults only." I stayed quiet, but what I did next made them show up angry next morning. It was 10 minutes before guests were supposed to start showing up when I got the text. I was just standing there in the kitchen doorway, trying not to tear up over a beet salad. Not because of the beets, even though they do kind of look like something a surgeon might pull out of a body, but because my daughter was bouncing around the kitchen like grandma's opinion on her lavender glaze would determine the course of her entire future. Honestly, maybe it did, at least in her mind. Mira had been awake since 5 a.m. That's not me being dramatic. I actually heard her alarm go off. By the time I got up, she'd already baked, mixed, frosted, stirred, burned something, remade it, and steam cleaned the kitchen floor because, in her words, it was giving health inspector energy. The dining room table was set for 25 people. She made handwritten place cards, picked out fresh flowers, even printed menus. The whole place smelled like thyme, melted butter, and something sweet I couldn't quite put my finger on. It smelled like money. Mira had curled her hair, was wearing a clean apron, and had that wild electric glow you see on people in the final round of a cooking show or brides having second thoughts. That's when my phone buzzed. It was the family group chat. The one usually reserved for Happy Easter messages and blurry casserole photos. It was from my dad. He wrote, "We've decided to celebrate at a restaurant. Adults only, no punctuation, no explanation." That was it. At first, I thought I misread it, or maybe it was a bad joke. Meanwhile, Mira had just pulled a tray of sugar-free pear tarts out of the oven for Grandma's diabetic neighbor. She was humming to herself. I stepped into the hallway like I was going to take a call. I wasn't, not yet. I just needed a minute to stop my hands from shaking. I stared at the message. "We've decided," not I, we. I called my dad first. It rang twice. "Hey," he answered, sounding totally upbeat. "You sent that message? You're not coming?" I asked. My voice was weirdly steady, probably because my brain had already switched into some kind of emergency shutdown mode. No, we changed plans," he said. "It was just easier this way, we're already here." "You're at the restaurant right now?" I asked. "Yep, just sat down. Menu looks great, everyone's here." There was a pause. "Why?" "Because Mira's been cooking for 3 days, I said. "You said we'd host it here. She made food for 25 people. She's been up since 5 this morning." There was a beat of silence. "Oh, well, tell her not to take it personally. She can freeze the leftovers, right? Gotta go, waiter's here." I just stared at my phone, then I called my mom. She picked up with a cheerful hello, like nothing was on fire. "Did you really just not show up?" I asked. She sighed. "Honey, don't start. We just thought it'd be more convenient. And honestly, we didn't want to risk anyone getting sick." "Sick," I repeated. "She's 16, Lena. It's sweet, but it's not exactly safe to let a child cook for that many people." "She's not a child. She's taken classes. She built a whole menu. She sanitized every surface. She even made separate dishes for people with dietary restrictions." "Well, that's nice," she cut in. "But it's not real cooking, not like a restaurant." I hung up. I didn't trust myself to speak. Next, I called my sister. Not because I expected her to be any better, but I guess a small part of me hoped she hadn't been in on it, that maybe she didn't know. She knew. "Oh, Lena," she said, already annoyed. "Don't guilt trip everyone over this. She's crying. She's being dramatic. She's exhausted. She's 16. She needs to learn the world doesn't revolve around her. She made food for 25 people, and none of you wanted to be her test subjects." The way she said test subjects made my jaw lock, like Mira was some lab rat in a Pinterest maze. I hung up on her, mid-sentence. Didn't even care what she was about to say. I stood there, frozen, trying to remember how to breathe. Behind me, Mira was still talking. "Do you think the pomegranate glaze is too sweet?" I didn't want to overdo it. "Also, is the lighting too warm?" I was going for restaurant cozy but not like overdone. "And Mom," she stopped. I turned to look at her. Whatever she saw on my face made her fall silent. Her eyes dropped to the phone in my hand. Then she took it. I didn't stop her fast enough. She opened the group chat, scanned it, and saw the photo. A long table, glasses raised, my sister's barely legal kids smiling with full plates, my mom glowing, my dad holding up a wine glass. Mira stared at it too long. Then she hit call. "Grandma," she said. I couldn't hear what was said, but I watched Mira nod, and then nod again, and then stop nodding. Her face collapsed in on itself, like the air had been knocked out of her. No wailing, no sobbing, just tears. Slow, steady ones, like she was too ashamed to cry properly, like something inside her gave out. I reached for her. She stepped back. She set the phone down gently, like it might shatter. Then she turned toward the cake. It was stunning. 3 tiers. Delicate rosettes. "Happy 68th, Grandma," was written across the top in dark chocolate. She stared at it, didn't say a word. I just stood there, frozen, feeling completely useless. But then this voice inside me went, "Nope, not this time, not again." I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let them be the ones who defined this moment for her, or steal it. Not without a fight. I used to think the hardest thing in the world was watching your kid cry. Turns out it's worse when they try not to because they're more worried about your feelings than their own. That night, while everyone else was off toasting each other over dinner, I stood outside Mira's bedroom holding a plate of untouched roast duck, wondering how the hell we ended up here. And yeah, deep down I knew exactly how we did. It started the day I was born, and no, that's not me being dramatic. I was the second daughter, 2 years younger. Completely unplanned. My mom never outright said I was a mistake, but she didn't have to. She'd say things like, "We thought we were done after your sister," or "You were a surprise but a sweet one." Which, in plain English, means, we didn't want another but I guess we'll deal with it. My sister was everything they could have dreamed of. Blonde, graceful, outgoing. She could twirl once in the living room and get a standing ovation. I, on the other hand, could fix a broken fan and make it run better than new, and all I got was a scolding for messing with man things. She did ballet. I once dismantled a toaster and got grounded for destroying appliances. They paid for every single dance class, every sparkly recital, every gold-sequined fever dream. When I asked if I could sign up for a weekend craft course, leatherworking, I think I got, "We don't have the money for that," followed by, "What would you even do with it?" Well, turns out I turned it into a business. Years later, I run a small but steady company selling handmade home goods. My husband's a woodworker. Together, we do all right, nothing extravagant, just honest work that pays the bills, but my parents still call it a cute little side thing. Meanwhile, my sister's holding 2 degrees, one in literature, one in dance, and her job situation is about as stable as a deck chair in a hurricane. Still adored though, still the golden one. And because the universe loves irony, I still help her out now and then, quietly, without saying a word, because that's who I am. I pick up the bills no one talks about, birthdays, travel expenses, even the occasional busted water heater at my parents' place. All silently handled by the Bank of Lenas, doing fine. They treat my money like shared property and my voice like background noise. And then Mira came along. My daughter, my everything, my poetic justice wrapped in flour and fire. She's like me but louder, bolder. Her interests are super specific, sure, but she never apologizes for them. Her hands are always covered in flour or syrup from some wild recipe she's working on. Once she cried because her hollandaise didn't have enough emotional depth. I have no clue what that means, but God, I love her for it. Mira doesn't just like cooking, she wants to be a chef. She reads restaurant reviews like other teens scroll TikTok, talks about mise en place like it's a religion. She's already mapping out which culinary schools to apply to, debating whether she wants to specialize in pastries or savory dishes. She's 16, and just like they did to me, my family keeps trying to dim that spark in her. Oh, it's sweet that she plays around in the kitchen. She'll grow out of it. She's too sensitive for that kind of work. Maybe she should look into something more academic. You know, like her aunt, right? Because what we really need is another debt-riddled artist with no job. I've lost count of how many times I've watched Mira bite her tongue at family gatherings. After one brunch, she locked herself in the bathroom for 20 minutes. Later she told me it was because of an onion she chopped to 6 hours earlier. So when she came up to me and said, "Mom, I want to cook for Grandma's birthday this year," all of it, just me. I froze a little, but I was also proud. She knew how hard that would be. She knew what they were like, and she wanted to do it anyway. I asked her 3 times, "Are you sure?" And each time she nodded even harder. I want to show them what I can do, and she did. She built a menu, printed it, turned the kitchen into a full-blown operation, accounted for every allergy, every dietary issue, every picky eater. My dad hates mushrooms. My mom says cilantro tastes like soap. Mira planned around all of it. She paid for the groceries herself, searched out the best ingredients, tested every recipe. She even borrowed a cake turntable so she could get the frosting lines perfect. Every night she'd show me her checklist, marks next to every task. Then she'd ask, "Do you think they'll like it?" I told her yes every single time, and I meant it. But it still broke my heart that she even had to ask. On the day of the party she was up again at 5. Not kidding, I heard the pans clanging, the classical music humming softly. She says it helps her focus, and the quick tap of her heels across the tile as she floated from stove to counter and back again. By 4 o'clock she looked exhausted, but she was glowing, radiant, like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. And you already know the rest. They didn't come, they went out to eat instead. Every single one of them, my parents, my sister, my niece and nephew showed up. Even the ones who usually roll in late with store-bought dip made it. The only 2 people missing, me and my daughter. The girl who baked a 3-tiered cake and wrote Happy 68th in delicate swirls of dark chocolate. They didn't just skip the food, they skipped her. And the worst part, they didn't even bother to make up an excuse. But here's the part I haven't told you yet. That same night, while Mira sat quietly in her room pretending to scroll on her phone, I got a text. It was a payment alert. My business card, the one I occasionally use to cover family stuff, had just been charged $1,419.50 at a fancy downtown restaurant, the place they were at. The size party. They used my card to pay for the dinner that replaced hers. I was still standing in the kitchen, holding half a tart crust in one hand, just staring at the screen, and then I laughed, because it was either that or break something. Then it hit me, that deep, slow burning kind of anger that settles right before everything explodes. They didn't just ignore her, they made me foot the bill for it. And I think they honestly believed we'd just take it, that we'd stay quiet, keep being polite. They seriously underestimated me. I should have been the calm one, right? The adult. The mom who gently says, "It's okay, sweetie, you did your best." Yeah, no, that wasn't happening. Mira was still standing stiff in front of the cake. Her hands clenched at her sides like she was 1 second away from throwing something but couldn't bring herself to ruin her own masterpiece. And it was a masterpiece. Chocolate lace piped all around the base, crystallized violets on top like they were plucked straight from a fairy tale. She turned to me with red eyes and whispered, "We should just throw it all away." I looked right at her. "No, Mom, no. If they won't eat it, we'll find someone who will." "Like who?" she asked. I didn't have an answer, but my fingers were already moving across my phone. Mira didn't know it yet, but I was about to burn the whole evening down and build something better from the ashes. First, I called my husband. He was still at work, which somehow made me even madder. "I need you home," I told him. Now. He didn't ask why, just said be there in 20. Then I started dialing. Old friends, neighbors, cousin Zane from my dad's side, the one who always gets left out for being too political, which really just means he doesn't let our parents get away with garbage. Folks from the local community board, a woman I barely knew from a charity bake sale, even the receptionist at my dentist's office. I didn't care. I told them the truth. My daughter spent 3 days cooking for her grandmother's birthday. They bailed. She made dinner for 25 people. I need people to eat. It wasn't an invitation, it was a call to action. And shockingly, people showed up fast. By the time my husband pulled into the driveway, 2 other cars were already there. One neighbor brought a bottle of wine and a whole extended family who hadn't figured out dinner yet. A woman from an old book club appeared with her teenage son and a handful of tulips she'd picked up on the way. Word spread quickly. It felt like a one-night rebellion, potluck protest style. Mira was mortified. She stood in the hallway whispering, "Mom, what are you doing? I'm rescuing your dignity and dessert. Now help me grab more chairs." But I turned to her. "You cooked for 3 straight days. You created something amazing. This isn't pity, it's power." That shut her up, mostly because her brain looked like it was buffering. We pulled out the folding tables, rearranged the chairs, started setting out food. By the time the third wave of guests arrived, Mira was back in the kitchen, whispering frantically to herself about reheating times and sauce temperature. That's when the journalist walked in. I hadn't invited her. Someone else had, friend of a friend. She wrote for a local food blog. She came in with a camera bag and a full appetite for drama. "I heard what happened," she said. "Would it be okay if I tried a few things?" Mira was frozen by the oven, staring like someone had just asked her to sing live while juggling creme brulee. I answered for her. "Go ahead," I said, and handed the woman a plate. But she didn't just eat. She documented everything. She snapped photos, asked questions, jotted down notes. At one point, she leaned in and whispered to me, "You know she's better than some professional chefs I've reviewed, right?" I swallowed hard. Tell her that. Eventually, things settled. All 25 seats were filled. Mira peeked out from the kitchen like a nervous little raccoon and asked, "Should I bring out the appetizer?" "No," I told her. "Bring out your menu." So she did. The room hushed as the first course was served. Then came the murmurs. "Wait, is that lavender? This is so good." By the time the main course rolled around, there was actual clapping. Then when dessert hit the table, someone stood up and raised a glass. "To Mira," they said, "to the girl who cooked a feast, didn't back down, and whose food blows every overpriced restaurant out of the water." She got a standing ovation. And just when I thought the night couldn't get more poetic, someone pulled out a second cake, not hers, store-bought, probably brought just in case, but no one wanted that one. They wanted Mira's. And when they asked her to do the honors, she smiled, just barely, but it was real. And in that moment, I let myself exhale. But the night wasn't done with us. At 3 a.m. while I was still wide awake, I got a message. It was a link from the journalist. A full article, already live. The birthday that wasn't. A feature on how a teenage chef made a full-course dinner for 25 only to be abandoned and ended up hosting the most unforgettable meal of the year. And it didn't just rave about Mira's cooking. It told the story, the whole story. How Grandma's birthday was supposed to be at our house. How Mira did all the work herself. How the family with no warning decided to ditch her for a restaurant instead. And how they used my card to pay for it. It didn't name my parents, but it named Mira, and it made damn sure readers knew exactly who showed up and who didn't. I stared at the screen in shock. Then I scrolled to the comments. They were already pouring in. "She's amazing. Where can I try her food? Who ditches their granddaughter like that?" I looked over at Mira. She'd fallen asleep on the couch, still in her apron, hands curled like she was clutching a spatula in her dreams, and I knew this wasn't the end, not even close. That article was already making noise, and not everyone was gonna like what it kicked up. There's a certain kind of silence that settles before someone knocks on your door in pure furious rage. No footsteps, no car, no yelling. Just a stillness, so heavy the air feels like it's holding its breath. I was at the sink washing dishes. Half the cake was still in the fridge. I was humming something under my breath, finally feeling the tiniest shred of peace when, bang, 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 I dried my hands and looked through the window and actually laughed. They really showed up. My parents, both in matching windbreakers, were standing on the porch, red-faced and puffed up like B-list actors in a bad courtroom drama. And right behind them, arms crossed like she'd been practicing the pose for weeks, was my sister. I opened the door, but I didn't invite them in. "You need to fix this," my dad snapped, skipping any kind of greeting. My mom jumped in. "Do you even know what you've done to our reputation?" My sister? Silent, letting them do the dirty work first. Classic. I blinked. What I've done, and just like that they pushed past me, into my hallway, my kitchen, my house, like they still had any authority here. "You told the media we abandoned Mira," my mom hissed. I folded my arms. I didn't tell them anything. A journalist showed up, tasted the food your granddaughter made, heard what happened, and wrote about it. Honestly, I think they understated how bad it was. My dad jabbed a finger at me. "You think this is funny? Everyone at church saw it. Our neighbors are talking. My golf group won't even reply to my texts." I raised one eyebrow. Devastating. That's when my sister finally stepped up. "You need to correct it," she said, her voice shaking with that performative calm she always used when she wanted to sound reasonable. "Tell people it wasn't true. Say it was blown out of proportion." I just stared at her. "Out of context?" I repeated. "Did someone hack your phone and send that message from the restaurant? Did I imagine the $1,400 charge on my card? Did Mira hallucinate the pictures you posted of everyone grinning at the dinner table?" My mom's voice cracked. "She made us look like monsters." "No," I said quietly. "You did that all by yourselves. All Mira did was cook." That's when the yelling started. Not talking to me, not even at me, around me, through me. "She's just a child and she's already learned how to weaponize the internet. She embarrassed her grandmother for attention. You raised her wrong. She's dramatic. She's ungrateful." And then, this one landed like a punch to the chest. My mom looked past me, saw Mira standing silently in the hallway and said, "You should be ashamed of yourself." I don't even remember moving. 1 second I was standing by the door. The next, I was between them and my daughter. That's when my husband came home. He didn't even ask what was going on. He saw their faces, saw Mira's tears, and stepped in like a bouncer. "Out," he said. My dad scoffed. "This is a family matter." "No," my husband said calmly. "This is my home. You came here to yell at a 16-year-old girl who cooked you dinner. You don't get to hurt her twice, not today, not ever." And he didn't even raise his voice. He didn't need to. They froze, simmered, deflated. Then my sister muttered something about legal action and stormed off. My parents followed. Slam, silence. Mira was still behind me, quiet, rigid. I turned to hug her, but she didn't move. She turned toward the living room window. Phones, 3 of them, pointed right at our house. I squinted, and there he was, Doug, our across-the-street neighbor, standing in his front yard looking stunned. Of course it was Doug. The same Doug who runs the local Facebook group and live-streamed our last neighborhood barbecue. I gave him a polite wave, the kind that said hi, and also, "I swear I'll set your compost bin on fire if you post this." Too late. That evening a video popped up online. Title: "The grandparents from that viral Teen Chef story just showed up at her house and screamed at her." Watch what they said. And well, the internet did what the internet does. It lit a match. And the comments? Absolutely savage. Imagine being this pressed over a cake. They sounded like they were rehearsing to be the villains in some off-brand Hallmark movie. I mean, who screams at a teenager who spent 3 days cooking them dinner? One comment just said, "This is exactly why some of us go no contact." And honestly, yeah, that night before I blocked them all, I saw the final round of texts roll in. First, "You've ruined us." Then, "We'll be taking legal action if you don't issue a public correction." And finally, "This is elder abuse, right?" I didn't respond, I just hit block. My parents, my sister, their side of the family group chat gone, and that credit card they used for the dinner that erased my daughter, I deleted it. That little betrayal, not happening again. Later, I posted something. Nothing long, nothing dramatic, just one line: "We stand by every word, and we're done protecting people who hurt our daughter." I braced for backlash. What came instead was support. Old friends reached out. Total strangers sent messages to Mira. A local chef invited her to come stage in his kitchen over the summer. And someone from the culinary program she dreamed about sent a DM saying they'd be keeping an eye on her journey. We didn't exactly celebrate, but for the first time in a while, we exhaled. Fast forward 1 year, Mira got in. Not just anywhere, the program. the one she used to whisper about like it was too fragile to say out loud. She's still in her first year, but she already has clients. People asking her to cater birthdays, bake for intimate dinners, design entire menus. Some of them even reference that article. Or her food blog. Yeah, she started one. Recipes, photos, videos. She's building something. And the audience, it's real. They see her, really see her. She's not louder now, not tougher, just steadier. She never spoke to my parents again, neither did I. We heard they moved, some quiet little town 2 hours away. Apparently too many folks stopped inviting them places. Too many friends were suddenly busy. Word is, they told people they wanted a slower life. Sure, Mira never got a real apology. I never saw a penny of that 1400, but we got something more valuable. Clarity, peace. A future Mira is carving out with her own hands, on her own terms. And they can't take that from her, not anymore. So yeah, that's how my daughter's first heartbreak became her first headline. How a ruined birthday turned into a full-course rebirth. And how I stopped bankrolling people who thought guilt could buy silence. I chose my daughter, and I'd do it again tomorrow, no hesitation.